Howdy y'all, welcome back. A staple of the American history as we are presented with it today are the Great Fires. We have great fires that decimated a good number of major cities throughout the 19th century, and I've always wondered how this was possible. Again, we usually have the same story. These locations did not have any sort of firefighting in place, and the architecture was more advanced than the people were. Now, if that doesn't quite make sense to you or doesn't sit well with you, it never sat well with me either. These fires became the catalyst for the destruction of old world style architecture and the founding of new structures to replace what was lost. A product of their time, the Great Fires represent a period in American history where, according to the narrative, our ambition outweighed our knowledge and often led to the downfall of many major cities. It all sounds like some sort of plausible deniability, the same plausible deniability we've been fed over and over again when it comes to discussing old world structures. We're looking at buildings that appear beyond their primitive means. In today's video, we will look at the first city to be fully photographed after a Great Fire event, and most of these photographs are going to be dated from the days directly after the fire. What we are looking at is the aftermath of the Great Fire in Portland, Maine, which occurred on July 4th of 1866. As you can see, the architecture in this city appears to be almost entirely old world in style. We're looking at masonry and very little lumber or wood to be seen. The majority of the photographs produced appeared to be in the old world 3D or stereoscopic style, which was one of the most popular forms of photographic entertainment at this time period. It's as if the Great Fires that we always talk about transcended the communities that they occurred in, the communities they affected, and became a point of contention in the overall American history. A point in time where we are supposed to accept that gigantic stone masonry burned to the ground, while being told this is also what led to modern firefighting techniques being adopted throughout the country, and the sacrifice of cities like Portland was not in vain. The stones that we look at in today's video appear decimated. Some look withered away, melted, as if the power of this Great Fire had the gusto to melt away brick and masonry. The history of Portland, Maine is also very intriguing. We're told Portland is the largest city in Maine, with over 68,000 residents calling the city of Portland home. The greater Portland metropolitan area houses over 550,000 residents, and the Port of Portland is currently the second largest seaport in all of New England by tonnage. Portland, Maine is named for Portland, England, and Portland, England, sitting in the English Channel, is home to the world-famous Portland limestone, which has been used in countless of the most famous buildings in history, including St. Paul's Cathedral and the United Nations headquarters. Portland, England is also home to one of the largest man-made ports in the entire world, making it even more interesting that Portland, England is the namesake for the city that we're looking at today, Portland, Maine. Portland, Maine was incorporated on July 4th, 1786. Remember this date, as July 4th, the U.S. Independence Day, is the same day the Great Portland Fire broke out in 1866. The current Portland City seal is a phoenix rising from the ashes, signifying how Portland, Maine has been destroyed and rebuilt following 4 separate Great Fires. When European settlers first arrived to Portland, the area was said to be dominated by the Algonquin-speaking Abenaki, who called the Portland Peninsula the Great Neck of their civilization. Portland is a city situated along the larger Casco Bay, and the date of Casco Bay's founding is debated, but could trace back as early as 1525 with the maps established by Esteval Gomez. The archaeological evidence at Casco Bay states indigenous groups had occupied this peninsula for at least 4,000 years, but again, we have to take carbon dating with a huge grain of salt. Again, it could be plausible deniability. Many more explorers, whether purposefully or accidentally, ended up landing on the Casco Bay. Now, here is where we begin to get to the real meat and potatoes of this video, the things within the narrative that don't exactly make sense. First of all, we're told that European diseases wiped out 3/4 of the entire indigenous Abenaki people by the year 1619, and following this epidemic, Casco Bay was settled by large groups of European settlers. The first stone house ever founded in Casco Bay, get this, was on a location known as House Island. Today, House Island is privately owned, inaccessible by the public, and contains an ancient star fort which was built in 1808 and courses deep through the underground of the entire House Island, known as Fort Scammell. I can't make this up. House Island, with the ancient star fort, was then sold privately in the year 2022 for $5.35 million, which actually seems like a cheap price for an island which is quite literally concealing a massive underground fortification. The Massachusetts Bay Colony took over all of Casco Bay, renaming the land Falmouth. The fortified town of Falmouth was destroyed twice before the year 1700, before being rebuilt with a star fort known as Casco Fort, founded by Wolfgang William Romer. Falmouth was destroyed by the British in 1775 before being rebuilt again, this time quickly rising to one of the largest commercial ports in America by the year 1785. By 1786, the citizens of this great port city renamed the location Portland, seemingly indicating the deep ties that this land has always had with England, as echoed by the struggles that Portland, Maine faced during the Embargo Act of 1807 and the War of 1812. Yet, seemingly indicating that Portland was the headquarters of something much larger, the brain behind the business that controlled New England. When Maine was founded as a state in 1820, Portland was named the capital. In 1832, the capital was moved to Augusta, but the power remained in Portland. In 1851, an undeniably mysterious point in our timeline, the state of Maine banned all alcohol. 18 other states quickly followed suit, which culminated in the Portland Rum Riot of 1855. Portland became the primary winter port for Canadian goods by the 1850s with the completion of the Grand Trunk Railway, and this coincided with the founding of the Portland Company, who were told constructed more than 600 original locomotives to be used around the country. And the Portland Company was Portland's largest employer at the time of the Great Fire in 1866. We're told one of the northernmost battles of the Civil War, which it's shocking to me how many moments seem to claim this title, but we're told Confederates marched on Portland, aiming to take hold of the Portland Company in June of 1863, leading to the Battle of Portland Harbor. However, it was the Great Fire on July 4th, 1866, which absolutely reduced Portland to a state of nothingness. The Great Fire occurred in the second Independence Day celebration following the end of the Civil War, the first with most soldiers returned home. And July 4th just so happened to also be the same day Portland was incorporated in 1786. So this celebration was made to be boldly extravagant. We're told this was the largest fire on record in American history up until that point. And the 1866 Portland Fire destroyed most commercial buildings, including the Portland Company, as well as over half the places of worship in the city, all of their old world style architecture lost, and roughly 1,800 homes were destroyed, which amounted to over 10,000 people becoming homeless. According to the accepted narrative, the damage you see in these photographs we've looked at today was caused by a fire, which began in a privately owned boathouse on Commercial Street, the product of either lit ash from a cigar or an Independence Day firework accidentally being lit inside of the structure. The fire quickly spread to the lumber yard just next to the boathouse. Again, it's understandable the lumber yard was next to the boathouse, as many vessels at this time were being built out of wood, but it's remarkable that of all the places in this old world city where nearly everything we see was made of stone, we're told the fireworks for the celebration just so happened to be kept in the most flammable part of the city, leading to this great fire. What a coincidence. Seemingly indicating how slow and calculated the burn of this great fire was. While over 1,800 buildings were lost, only 2 people passed away as a result of the Great Fire in Portland, Maine. Essentially, The Great Fire just made about half the city homeless, and it cleared the path for new venture capitalists and tycoons of industry to rebuild Portland from the foundations of these earlier structures. One of the most important buildings lost in the 1866 Great Fire in Portland was the Federal Exchange Building, which held some of the most important documents in Portland's history. It was replaced by the Custom House, which still stands today. We're told directly after the fire, again, seeing the damages that we do in these images, can you believe that the entire city of Portland, Maine was rebuilt in less than 4 months, with over 600 new buildings being erected by the beginning of winter 1866? I believe I'm going to wrap up my narrative there. When we look at Portland, Maine, it is remarkable to me that before this 1866 Great Fire, we really don't have a proper documentation of all of the magnificent old world style buildings that existed in this city. Yet with the Great Fire, it becomes apparent just how lavish, just how extraordinary the architecture in Portland, Maine really was. So I wanted to share these images with you, said to be the first photographs of a city taken directly after a Great Fire. Within a decade of the Great Fire in Portland, Maine happening, we also have other great fires that would greatly impact other cities around our country, including the Great Fire that occurred in Chicago. But this Great Fire in Portland, at the time that it occurred, was the largest fire in American history. So I wanted to share these images with you and then ask your opinion about this whole narrative down below, because something about this is just a little bit fishy to me. And if you've been with me for any of the research into America before the year 1900, when we look at these great fires, we simply cannot seem to find a narrative in a major city that does not include a major disaster like these fires. The old world structures are often burnt down, they're torn down, they're demolished because of these events, and then the city is rebuilt out of the foundations of something much earlier. Let me know what you think down below. I have hundreds of other videos just like this one with thousands of other photographs, so definitely subscribe to the channel and check those out, and we will talk again on the next video.